everybody. Welcome to another episode of For Your Ears podcast. I remain your host, Naomi. There can't even be another one, safe. I'm telling you, I'm just saying. So today, you know why you laughing? I'm not even introduce you, you're already laughing. So
Sorry.
today, I don't know, I need to give Ire like a title in this show because Ire is like our intelligence correspondent because this is like episode this how many this is like our third episode, so I feel like I'm still going to introduce Ire. Obviously she's going to introduce herself because she's our correspondent on this show. And no, obviously, like, I'm always talking about serious things with her because you can see that she's a serious babe. So Ire, please, can you introduce yourself?
Uh, Hello. My name is Iwetomiwa Ikishola. What I do for work is I work in digital marketing, so I do a lot of content strategy, account management,
I told you she's a serious babe.
cop-
Continue.
copywriter. But aside from what I do for work, I'm also I also like to describe myself as a quote unquote practicing intellectual. I have interest across like
Yeah,
various
I talk am. Continue.
so for example, I have a newsletter on Substack where I write like cultural criticisms, social commentary, like things happening from like pop culture to
Yeah,
politics
yes.
to movies to history and things like
Mm-hmm.
that. So the reason she thinks I have the intelligence correspondence is because of that. Don't worry, I'm not coming to talk about how to plan for your brand. Not reach that level. But yes, that is why I'm here. Anytime you see me here, just know it's either analysis, social comment,
Yes.
cultural criticism.
I like that you're taking this your job very serious. Thank you, Ire. So you guys, I also need to even mention I learned a lot from Ire. See, our TikTok streaks are like I think up to like 200 now, and sometimes like we
Yeah,
share she shares some stuff with me, like I share some stuff that like history, and I even learned that this cowboy carter like things about country music. I didn't know that it was related to also black people. So like I learned so much, and this is why I've given her the title of our intelligence correspondence on For Your Ears podcast. So
you know,
round of applause,
you
everybody.
know the problem. You are making it sound like I'm James Bond. That's the
You are
problem.
James Bond. You are James Bond. Don't argue with me. You are James Bond. So, guys, we're going to talk about sorry, I say another episode. Hey, God, new me. So, we're going to talk about something really important. So, me, self, I would like to understand it, and that's the reason why I said, Ire will be perfect for this episode. So, we're going to be talking about the pro-choice movement. I'm not even going to. I don't want to call it that, but like I'm basically trying to talk about reproductive rights, things like that, and it's something I've been meaning to learn about. And yeah, I know some people come for me, but I really don't care. I want to learn about it, so I'm like, Ire will be perfect for this. So obviously, I have a couple of questions that she's going to answer, and let's get right into the episode. Okay, so can you explain what the pro-choice movement stands for and why it's important?
Okay, so um, the pro-choice movement is colloquially known as the pro-abortion movement. But I personally do not think that being pro-choice means only that. So if you're going to tell me to define it, I would say pro-choice is where the movement that fights for women's sexual autonomy, meaning that women should have a say in terms of their reproductive abilities and rights in general. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, take for example, I know people know abortion, but things like for example, birth control
Yeah.
is is a result of the pro-choice movement, like various forms of birth control, things like condoms, like they may not be the quote unquote direct response, but it all comes from the need to for people going, oh, um, men do have a certain level of autonomy sexually. They do have some certain level of autonomy. It doesn't always work out every time, but there's a certain level of autonomy that has kind of been inculcated into the patriarchy when it comes to
Mm-hmm.
sexuality. But like
Yeah.
women are usually burdened with like pregnancy, and
Yeah.
as much as we are trying to strive for an equal world, it doesn't mean like men and women are like equal when it comes to biological activity. So, for example, women take more burden when it
Yeah.
comes to pregnancy because of the way nature of pregnancy is and procreation is. So, the pro-choice movement is saying basically women should get a say in what they want to do sexually and reproductively. An aspect of what you can call the pro-choice movements are things like, okay, for example, the fight against like women marrying young,
Okay.
can, because that is also a level of saying women should have autonomy for this thing.
Mhm.
Because when you're older, when you have like more resources, you are more likely to pick somebody you like, not somebody that is just subjected to you have just forced into whatever marriage and all. So yes, the overarching idea is abortion. Yes.
Yeah.
But there are also other like mini important things. And why is it important? There's one TikTok I saw, basically an antinatalist TikTok. Don't worry, I'm not going to give you anti-child propaganda here. But basically, the idea was saying that people that don't have children are hard to govern. Like what I
Yeah.
mean by govern, like in terms of authoritarian regimes, because they don't really have things that you can use against them. So, for example, it's easier for someone that doesn't have a child to protest against the government. You understand?
Mm.
There's
Mm.
fear of, if you arrest me, what will happen to my children? You get, there is not that kind of fear. So I would kind of link that to a certain level of women's sexual autonomy. Women, there's a certain level of freedom that women have once they have sexual autonomy. There's a certain level of freedom. And what I mean by that is, now take me for example. Olden days Yoruba, this thing, we had like women marrying young, like
Yeah.
marrying, like, I'm going to be 27. I get to, because of the luxuries and the class that I am in, education, I get to, like for example, work for my money. And
Mm.
when I want to marry somebody, because of the certain level of knowledge I have, thanks to education, as well as pro-choice movements that such as, okay, for example, birth control, you
Yeah.
understand? I do not feel like I have to be burdened with a man that treats me terribly. You
Mhm.
understand?
Mhm.
Like even if I quote unquote make a mistake, I do not feel like, oh, that mistake has to be a permanent scar of my life. You
Yeah.
understand? To some of the things from the pro-choice movement, I don't have to think like, oh, now I get to see, okay, do I like this person? Does this person fit into the standard of life I want? You get to see women as full autonomous beings that get to make decisions for themselves. So I'm not making a decision of, my child is hungry kind of thing. I am like, I want to partner with this person. Does this person fit the vision of the life I have for myself? Like it doesn't
Mhm.
have to be too deep, but like general this thing. So there's a certain level of freedom that comes with sexual autonomy, like a certain level of this, and you also get easier to moving things like uh equal rights in general when a woman has sexual autonomy.
Yeah.
So for the gender pay gap, for example, enlarges when women have children. The gender pay gap.
Yeah.
You say, oh, there's nothing like a gender pay gap, and probably. But the thing is, once a lot of women see a decline in income when they have children, and that
Yeah.
is because like the way capitalism works is you have to always be growing. You have to always be adding certifications, doing stuff. When you have a
I
child, you
hate
have
capitalism, but let's continue.
when you have a child, you are forced to slow down. You
Yeah.
understand? Take like take things slower and everything. That kind of forced to slow down thing kind of makes women not take riskier jobs. Or for example, if you have to travel, you'll be like, oh, I need to think of childcare, I need to
Mhm.
think of this, I need to think of that. So if, for example, you're supposed to take a job that will have more time, take more time off your hands, but
Yeah.
that will pay more, you're likely to decline that kind of work
Yeah. Because you're
because
thinking of your kids.
exactly. Now, what I mean by pro-choice helps you to this thing is, for example, is if women are not necessarily burdened by childbirth. So, for example, I can do the rugged 9 to 5 in my office. Stay in at the office till like 11, doing strategies. I can compete with quote unquote compete with the guys in my office because I am not burdened by. I have a child at home.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
nobody that I have to worry. Like,
You have to
and
pick
then
the
it
child
helps me
from
exactly.
school.
It helps me fast track my career. So I can go
Mhm.
into an organization and with grit and with all of that, I can, level up career wise and money wise. If that
Yeah.
is something I care about, the pro-choice movement has worked for me. And another thing
Mhm.
is an a not planned effect of the pro-choice movement is a lot of pro-choice movement has allowed research into women's reproductive health. So aside from like giving birth and all, you have things like endometriosis, PCOS, things like that
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
may not have a cure, but it's things like things that started from the pro-choice movement that are like management techniques. It's the things in the pro-choice movement that have to invest in research. So, for example, in America, a popular abortion um, unit or hospital or something is called Planned Parenthood. Now, Planned
Mhm.
Parenthood, aside from abortion, you'll probably be able to get diagnosed for things like endometriosis. You get medication because a significant part of medication for endometriosis is birth control. So
Mm.
you get birth control from um, um, Planned Parenthood and all.
Yeah.
Most people invest in women's reproductive health. I think it's serious enough for it to be invested in terms of like research and science. Are usually people that believe in women's autonomy. So yes, there's the usual it is important for women to have autonomy because it's when women have autonomy that we can really be equal in terms of like the rights and whatever we are fighting for. But aside from that, there's also unintended consequences. And what I mean by that is like the treatment of like women's reproductive health as a serious field. The people
Yeah.
that are most likely to invest in those research are people that believe that women are important enough, like in terms of sexual autonomy, that okay, their discomfort should matter, like in whatever
Yeah.
that reproductive health and stuff like that. So I think I've been able to answer your question. At least I hope I have. If I have not, you can always ask another question.
No, you have. You actually have. You said so many like groundbreaking things because, especially, I think people have this misconception of when people mention pro-choice, we're talking about abortion, but like it
Yes.
cuts across so many things, especially like reproductive health for women and stuff like that. So I'm sure, like, obviously, there are some misconceptions that we've talked. Like, obviously, I've already said one, the abortion things. But do you think there are other ones that we can address here? Like misconceptions when people say, "Oh, I believe in the pro-choice movement." Like I'm not technically. It's not just about abortion. So if there are any misconceptions that you would like to share, and if there are ways we can address that.
So the first thing I would say is abortion is a significant part of the pro-choice movement. So even if you think only abortion, it's not like you are
Mm-hmm.
wrong. You have the
Yeah.
full picture, but you're not necessarily wrong. But like misconceptions, I think people have about pro-choice. Mostly aside from the usual, oh, they don't know that pro-choice involves things like birth control and all of that,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
in general. Another a misconception I think people have about abortion specifically is that one, they think everybody that is pro-choice just enjoys killing babies for some
Mm.
reason.
Yeah.
And it's like, first things first, the whole point of being pro-choice is it's just like being anti-death penalty. I use that as a certain level of this thing. When I say, for example, that I do not believe death penalty is functional, or I don't think it's the best practice. A lot of
Yeah.
people say things like, "Oh, it translates in their head of, oh, so you want the person to go scot free, like that's how we."
Mm.
But that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that people can go to life imprisonment, people can have other forms of punishment, whatever. I just don't believe that death is the ultimate
Solution.
version. And it's the
Yeah.
same way I feel about pro-choice. I'm pro-choice for a lot of things. One, I have not had an abortion. I probably
Mm-hmm.
never will. I'm on
Yeah.
the straight and narrow. I don't. In Nigeria, Nigeria is a dangerous place to have an abortion. You will just die because there are no adequate facilities. But
Yeah.
I really feel like if an abortion is going to improve the quality of your life. I personally
Mm-hmm.
believe the state should tell you what
What to
to
do?
what not to do. And
Mm.
this is more political arguments, and I know there will be Christians that will listen to it and go this thing. This is more of a political argument. And now, this pro-abortion does not mean that if you don't want abortion, they should force you.
Mm.
That's not what the ultimate thing is. If you want to have 12 children, go ahead. I would not advise that personally, but if
That's a
that
lot of
is
children,
what
please.
if that is what you want, I do believe in women's autonomy to say, okay, I want to give birth to 12 children. Pro
Yeah.
choice, women should be able to decide. It shouldn't be left to fate and circumstances of life or where I was
Mm.
born. You
Mm.
understand? Also, I think another thing people think is that being pro-life, quote unquote, is easy, or don't just kill babies. The thing is, when you start going into the semantics of how to actually institute the law, you'll see that
Yeah.
they are not as easy as don't kill babies. So, for example, in the 21st century, a lot of states have become more prying eyes. Like Facebook is looking at you, like states like governments as well as private enterprises. Like
Yeah.
our life is very much open. If the government want to find you now, it's not really hard to locate you and stuff like that. So with the way, and also there also been very large technological advancement. I'm
Mm.
saying those things because Nigerians, for example, may not understand what I mean by it is hard to implement because our government does not really implement good laws, talk less of this one.
Yeah. At all.
So that, but take for example America. There
Mm.
used to be Roe. It has been struck down because of Dobbs, and I remember saying then that this thing is not going to turn out the way people think it is. And there was a lot of, oh no, you want to kill babies, usual this thing. But like a major thing for abortion is for you to say you don't want to kill babies, you have to determine at what stage is a
Yeah.
baby a viable option.
Mm. Mhm.
At what stage? That's why you be hearing people say, oh, at 3 weeks, at 6 weeks, 8 weeks, can you come?
Mm.
Like,
Mm. Yeah.
well, really that pro-life, you won't be having those, oh no, 8 weeks, it's clinical month, something, something, something. First is first, you have to determine when is a zygote a baby, like,
Yeah. When
because,
has this formed into an actual
and
being?
yes, and that things like that are important for like throwaway cases. For example, IVF.
Mm.
IV, there's implantation. A
Yeah.
lot of IVF processes, they fail. Like a
Mm.
lot. If you are saying just the implantation is a baby, technically those failed IVFs are abortion because you know that in IVF,
Mm.
look
Yeah.
at it, oh, what is the you inseminate a lot of eggs, blah 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 blah, and say which one is the
Mhm.
most viable,
Mhm.
blah
Yeah.
blah blah, and pick that one and let's go of the remaining. Technically, if we are saying that a baby, once the sperm has fertilized the egg, that's a baby. IVF people are doing abortion every day. They are just aborting
This is
thousands,
this is
thousands,
giving
thousands
a make
of
it make
babies.
sense moment.
Exactly. So like, if we're really going to say that, and if
Mhm.
we say that that is abortion, we will
Yeah.
discourage doctors from doing IVF because if you believe that abortion is killing babies, you will put a crime when you do abortion.
Mm. Mhm.
Now, as
Mhm.
an IVF doctor, if me I see that there's a crime that I throw away this thing that is not useful, I will not do IVF for you. I
Yeah.
personally I will go and look for something else to do. Maybe it's gynecology that I'm doing. Like, find another area. So it kind of chills things like that, medical advancements that we could be
Mm.
making in areas. Because then people will be scared. Am I going to lose my license? Am I going to do this, 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 this,
Yeah.
this?
Yeah.
Two, another thing is we also have this is I'm not it's a fringe movement, at least in America. I'm not sure whether it's a thing here, but there's this thing called the quiver free movement, meaning that give birth to as many children as possible. And there are other extremist movements like that.
Mm.
That they'll say there's one this thing of is it arrows in the quiver, like that. I can't remember. I've read it a long time ago. They are tying into one biblical passage that says something about
Be
like
fruitful and multiply.
basic not be fruitful and multiply, but it's the concept of be fruitful and multiply, all those
Ah.
kind of things. So a lot of those movements, for example, not only are they quote unquote pro-life, they are
Mm.
anti-birth because they feel like stopping the insemination of the egg is killing a child.
Yeah.
Because technically, if you put your sperm in condom, you don't want to have baby. It's the same thing that body that use abortion pill or something.
Abortion. Yeah.
not the same degree. It's not the same degree because one is there, but you are both trying to achieve the same thing. And we have moments like that saying they don't want birth control. Like
Mm.
they don't want like condom. No, they don't want they don't want you to do anything. You're like, bros, guy, calm down, oh. Calm down. Because aside from whatever you feel sexually, like I said, there are use cases of birth control that are not sexually related. So, for example, what are people with endometriosis supposed to do? Because you
Yeah.
want to, like, what are people like that have like issues supposed to do
Mhm.
because you don't want the dissemination of a child. Another thing another thing is about the whole having a child by force and all, is that if there's rape or incest,
Mhm.
like how
Mhm.
are you going to realistically handle it? And now I know it's a dicey topic.
It's
I'm
very
sure there are
dicey.
I know there are children that have been born from incest and nobody's saying
Yeah.
nobody's saying they should not exist and all of that. But I personally, if God forbid my enemy is raped, you cannot tell me to keep the child. I'm sorry. No, there's no Bible you want to quote to me. I'm sorry.
No, I think I also agree with you with that because like there's so much emotional trauma that comes with that. Then
Ah,
having
no,
to see the results of
exactly.
the
Child will not
yeah,
look like no, no,
no,
no. Like
at all,
I
at
will,
all.
I say, God, I'm sorry. That's what happened. I'm not gonna keep it. Let me just tell you maybe the truth. So it is a very dicey situation
Ah, yeah, it is.
to have that kind of strict this thing. Sure, if there are
Mhm.
women that have pregnancy, all power to them. We should create support for them.
Mm.
You
Mhm.
understand?
Mhm.
But we shouldn't have a world where people should not be able, like they should be forced to keep it because of abortion laws that exist. Another
Yeah.
thing, abortions are a medical procedure. I know people that are anti-abortion keep on saying that abortion is not healthcare, but there are cases where abortion is healthcare. So, for example, if uh there's a heartbeat, because there are a lot of laws that you hear, especially in America, and listen, that if you hear a heartbeat, that's a child and stuff.
Mm.
Okay,
Mm.
there's a heartbeat, but all of us, the mother, the doctor, everybody knows that this child cannot survive.
Mm.
How would, and if the child cannot survive, it will put the mother's life in danger. In cases
Ah.
of anti-abortion laws, how are we going to navigate that? And now I know
Mm.
somebody's going to always put caveats that if you need medical abortion, if you need what do you call it, in case of sorry, there's this thing they used to say, if it threatens the mother's life, if rape and
Yeah.
incest, you understand, you can always put all those caveats. But for example, if it threatens the mother's life, and this has played out, it's not something they said, this has played out especially in America post Roe v. Wade, when a woman will come with an issue. Oh, my tummy is paining me, child is this thing, that. Then the doctor
Mhm.
now discovers that, this child may not be able to make it.
Yeah.
Now, ordinarily, if they were doctors, they just say, please remove it now. You understand? Because the doctor is like, if we wait, it will cause issue. Maybe the child may
Yeah.
die in the
Yeah.
process, sepsis, and like let us do the, is it selective abortion? I mean, what did they call it, or whatever they call it? Let us do the whole process now. You get, so that we do not have to put the mom's life in danger in the future. Now, if you
Yeah.
have an abortion law that says abortion is only permitted rape, incest, and when the family, that the mother's life is in danger,
Yeah.
because the mother is not in danger at that present moment when you notice the problem, you cannot technically do
The
abortion.
problem would actually
Exactly,
is
you
to
have to
get
wait.
worse.
Yeah, see, you can, even legally, you can only wait till it gets worse before you do anything, because
Hi.
the law says abortion is only allowed when it threatens the mommy's life. As of now, threat, like, sure, there's a future threat, but
Yeah.
currently,
Currently,
since
it's not.
happening, if you abort, you are technically disobeying the law. So a lot of doctors are now saying, okay, they will have to wait till it
Ah,
gets before they can now do their justice.
that's
And you are seeing,
crazy.
like, I remember Kamala Harris was saying it in the campaign where she mentioned some women that died because of like complications and stuff
Yeah.
like that. Lack of access to abortion also increases your mortality rate. because like your child, like mothers dying at childbirth, because for example all these like things, all these dangerous childbirth that could have ended the mother's life,
Mhm.
once you allow for abortion to be legal, you do
Mhm.
allow like doctors to take proactive action. So if for example you
Yeah.
notice in 6 months they're like, let's quickly stop this now before it becomes a big action. Once you have very very strict abortion laws, in fact when you have abortion laws, let's not talk about how strict they are, it begins to become dicey. Another thing is a lot of people that write abortion laws are not medical professionals. You get, and
Mm.
them are not women. Some are, but some of them are not women. So we are having people that have a blind spot to a lot of these things.
Yeah.
So some
Yeah.
I done. A lot of people that write laws are not thinking of them because one, they are not
They don't even
medical professionals.
understand what's, yeah, they don't
Exactly.
have an understanding of what is actually going on.
Exactly. It's just an ideological or religious thing.
Mm.
Like this
Yeah.
thing,
Yeah.
or this is something I believe in my religion. You understand? There is no like,
Mhm.
okay,
Mhm.
you can believe whatever in your religion, but like practical steps on how to implement it in the 21st century is a
Yeah.
totally different thing.
Different.
Another,
Yeah.
we've advanced for how abortion is that if you take an abortion pill, at least some, I don't know of all, but some
Mhm.
abortion pills mirror miscarriages. So it's possible you could take an abortion pill. Like if nobody knows you bought an abortion pill, for example, let's say you are in a place where abortion is legal. If nobody
Mhm.
knows you bought an abortion pill and you use it,
Mm.
your process of aborting can be like a miscarriage. Now, remember I said state surveillance. We will now have a case where if nobody knows this thing, for example, if somebody turns up in a state, for example, that
Mm. Mm.
abortion, if somebody
Yeah.
turns up with a what do you call it? I'm losing my train of thought. With a miscarriage,
Yeah.
we will have cases where people now begin to suspect each other. Oh, is it an
Mm.
abortion? But this thing, because technically there are abortion pills that if somebody using this, if except you know, you cannot really tell that the person is going through. So in that case,
Yeah.
we will have to create a system where we begin to suspect women that have miscarriages
Ugh.
or show signs of miscarriages because we're like, yeah, maybe this person, and it's something that's happened, especially like places like America where race plays a thing. You see cases of black women aborting, and because you know there's a uh racial way of looking at things where people believe
Mm.
that black women are not as
Str-
careful, or black
Yeah.
women are, are like on drugs, you know, that there's all of that.
Mm.
So like there's point of view. So we're having cases where black women are not aborting, are miscarrying, you know, they are sad and they are depressed, only for authorities, like government authorities to come and start questioning them. You do abort
Yeah.
because why one nurse was suspecting that she aborted her baby. So somebody that just finished miscarrying will now go to court and be proving, I know kill my baby. My baby
That's
just
so
died.
sad.
And exactly, because now we will now create a surveillance state of who is aborting, who is not aborting. You know, everybody's always trying to find who is aborting.
Yeah.
Let's this thing because I want to be the one to report to the police. And because a lot of all those kind of things, not a lot, but some of these laws have like reward system of if you report somebody that's aborting, you will get
Yeah.
money. So
Oh,
like,
wow.
oh, this thing. So we now have this sort of panopticon where we've created where a view where people are now like, okay, how can I report? And then in that case, in a world where it is hard to tell, especially if you don't know if somebody has bought an abortion pill, it's hard to tell the difference. We're now having we are suspecting each other. And even if you know, we are now having cases where government is prying into um
For people's
private things.
personal lives.
Like if for example I was hearing the case of somebody that bought abortion pill from Facebook, and because government got access to her Facebook, they knew that she used abortion pill. Like why is government having access to my Facebook?
Why is
Please,
the government having access to your
that's
Facebook account?
what about your business. Exactly. Or people that have same period, you hear cases of they got access to a period app and they saw that there's some irregularities, so it looks like she may have taken
That's
some.
crazy.
So now we now welcome the government to say, let us pry on women so that they obey. and they follow our law. So generally, it is not, like I said, it is not as simple. Like I know people
Mhm.
say, I don't want to kill babies. It's which is all
Yeah.
well out. Everybody can have their personal preference on how things are
Mhm.
going. Like
Mhm.
and that's fine. You can think whatever, but things are not as simple as you say it. And I think I would take a lot of the quote unquote pro life slash anti abortion people a bit more seriously if they treat the conversation with more nuance. So you can hold your
Mm. Mm.
you can I really do not have a problem with you being pro life. Really, like I want a world where families and children and people are taken care of, where
Yeah.
there's a level of comfort. Like I want all of that. So if we can work together on some things, I really don't have a problem with that. What I have a problem is because there's this hand waving of, oh, problem solved. You understand that kind of thing? There is no look at, are there collateral damages? What are the consequences of it? Like assuming there's a
Yeah.
sense of care about issues like this,
Mhm. Mhm.
I probably more sympathetic to say, okay, we just disagree, or maybe women's
Mm.
autonomy. Ultimately, like you're not saying it from a place of malice, or which is but a lot of like ideological frames around abortion is very much like, oh, uh, you people just want to kill babies, and that's all. You
Yeah.
understand? Like,
If there's an
there's no
understanding, I think things
exactly
would just be better.
there's no like thought process. It's just like, oh, women are just sacrificing. You hear like religious thing that women are just
Mhm.
yeah, women now are moving like people that used to sacrifice this thing to idols, but now the idol is you want to achieve things, you're just selfish
Mm.
and stuff like that. And I'm like, having children does have selfish connotations too, because a lot of people that want children want to say they want to have a legacy, they want to leave something behind.
Yeah,
That's
everybody wants to leave a legacy now.
that's the reason for having a child. Like we're all selfish at one point in our life, like
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
but like there should be a certain level of nuance and care. We can even disagree, but you like there shouldn't be hand waving. I think that is what I think. Aside from the misconceptions, I think that is what
Mm.
I think. Of the major misconception is like, oh, this thing is very easy. This is very settled. Like, oh, I
Yeah.
just want to do this thing. And I'm like, it's not as easy or as simple as it is, especially when it comes to like implementing. Now, if your
Mm.
country is like a country where they don't even implement traffic law like that, maybe it's not as complex. But if you are like a country that like does enforce rules
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
that,
Mhm.
you're going to have to sit down and think about how it will work in the practical term and practical world. It's just like this. I'll give the example of when they did segregation, like in the US, like the law that said segregation was saying there was a lot like equal something. It was something about like you can segregate, but you need to provide the equal amenities. Like, but we all know that there is no way
That's a
that
big
a
fact. That
government
work out. You can't even work out.
and no, that there's no way that a government that says black people and white people should not go to school will give
Mm.
black and white people the same resource.
Yeah,
Like, come
it's
on,
it's not possible. Yeah, it's not.
not,
That's not gonna happen.
kind of that was kind of the undoing of the law at the end of the day, where the black people that should said, "Ah, you say equal but different.
Mhm. Mhm.
It's different, oh, but it's not equal. So alpha, what are we gonna do now that
Sorry.
it's different but it's not equal?" So basically, that's the same thing. I'm just using segregation as an example. I'm not saying the people that want to that are pro-life slash
Mhm.
anti-abortion
Mhm.
are
Mhm.
segregated. I'm saying like we need to sit down and think about the
Yeah.
consequences or ideas that we. I'm nobody saying you have to be a somebody that reads 200 people or you want to run for government or anything. Just that you are a active citizen that do pay attention that okay, yes, this is something I believe, but I also have to know that this is also a consequence. And if
Mhm.
I believe,
Mhm.
I should probably be working towards making sure that you get this does not happen, especially when people
Yeah.
are complaining about it and stuff like that. But basically, I hope I've been able to answer your question, my madam.
Where you answered, I feel like all the six questions I prepared for this
No, please,
episode,
sir, come on. We did
you
not reach that
answered
level.
every.
We did,
I'm actually serious.
we did not
I
reach that
talked
level.
about you've talked about legal restrictions and how those like legal instruction restrictions are affecting people. I have a question on that. What role does bodily autonomy play in the pro-choice argument, and what
Ah,
is a fund and why is it a
very,
fundamental issue? I don't
There's
think you've
very
answered that. But wait, before you answer that, I'm saying how can we support people? I think you've also mentioned a few things.
no. I think I can
And
still add, I can add a bit on that. How can we support when there are
yeah.
no like there's no pro-choice movement? First things first, you can support by supporting pro-choice institutions. So, for example, institutions like okay, I'm in Nigeria. I may not have abortion is not a popular idea, but I can support pro-choice movement by, for example, supporting policies that do family planning. For example, support
Mm.
things like I give access to like things like condom and birth control,
Yeah.
sex education, sex
Mm.
education, are vital part of the pro-choice movement. Like that's not yes, vital part of the pro-choice movement. Now, not a direct one to one, but if you are believing women
It's
should have
part of it.
autonomy,
Yeah.
people kind of have to know what is going on. So, like things like sex education. For example, one of the reasons I used to say I was still speaking with one of our your former colleague, my current colleague. I was saying, I was telling him, yes, Emeka, shout out to you. You hear yourself on the podcast.
He has
I
to
was
hear it. What did you say?
I was telling him that I believe that we should go back to having sex in movies. Like we need to make movies more honey again. And he was laughing. I was saying like the issue, the thing I
Ire.
let me land. I'm a brilliant person. I will get to my point. Relax.
Please land.
I said the reason why I feel like that is because if we seed the ground and say we don't want sex in movies, the
Yeah.
only place sex will be in public domain will
Be
be in
porn.
porn.
Yeah.
Yes, because where else do we be talking about sex in movies? Like really,
Mm.
where else? Like aside movies give us an opportunity to like have conversation. And by movies I mean like documentaries, those kind of
Yeah.
things. They
Yeah.
have conversations. If we are saying, oh, we don't want sex in movies, we don't want sex at all, this is the only place that will be having that mainstream conversation of sex will be porn. I don't want porn to be the only place people are learning sex from. Porn is not
Yeah.
a good place to learn sex from. Like, sure, is
Actually.
to get off and all of that, for a quick time. But like, I want people to be able to, for example, I want movies to be able to infuse conversation about like consent-driven culture. Yes, and by consent-driven,
Mm.
it's really like, I want to have like, sure, there's direct consent, there's direct,
Mhm.
I want to
Mhm.
have sex, but also consent is like communication, and not all communication is direct. You understand? Some things are
Yeah.
implied. So where people will be like, okay, I do have to have a certain level of relationship. Like even if it's a one night stand, there has to be a certain level of understanding. Like making
Yeah.
sure that the person is okay with whatever I'm doing. Like you can even be doing some crazy
Mhm.
shit, but making sure that both of you are on the same page.
You have
Those
an understanding and yeah, yeah.
exactly, those are the kind of conversations we can have with movies that we probably can't
Mm.
have. And that's what I was saying about sex education. That's why I'm saying like
Mm.
encourage like sex education. I'm one of like aside from the conventional sex education, I want more sex education in school. I want like in other things that people interact with, there should be a certain level of sex education that is happening. Like in terms of movies, our
Yeah.
music should
Mhm.
so gbagba, all this thing. Like sure, there's time for raunchy, whatever. But mostly like okay, there should be a certain level of care. Like you can be raunchy, but you should not be talking about the person you want to sleep with as if you are an enemy of the person. You should not
Yeah,
be
actually. Cause
like
now
that
what I
that
even
one.
I guy I me oh I don't understand. I don't like
I,
anytime I hear his name. I'm like no, I don't want
I
like
mean,
he's such a horrible human. Anywhere they are hating him, like if all of them are dead and I'm still alive, I will do the hating for everybody.
if Odobudu does have any other insider have died. I mean,
My dear,
dedicated. No,
I'm
no, no, no,
dedicated to the hating.
no.
Even
So
like
that's
yeah, like even recently, I don't even know. I think it was Ruga's new song that
that
he
one.
was talking
Put
about
her in a
how if he would delete a girl and put her
eh,
in nylon, Abby
nylon or
bean or
something.
something like that. I'm like, are you crazy?
Ah,
So I
So
understand
that's
what you're saying when it comes to like lyrics of songs and their videos and all those things.
and
Ah,
what I'm saying is, I mean, you should give us Mary Slay, mother child of God, when you're talking about sense of only missionary. That's not what I'm saying, though. I'm not
oh my god, Ire.
that. But what I mean is like we need to be having better conversations on sex in general. And I think
Mm.
to support like a pro-choice this thing is what I'm saying. Like if, for example, we have artists and this. So, for example, look at Bruno Mars before he did Fat, Juicy, and Wet. Before Bruno Mars was before.
When
Not
I
this.
saw that thing on
Please,
TikTok, I know listen to him. I was like, "Ah, what the hell? Like, where did this guy just switch from?"
the thing is, though, he has always been talking about sex. He was just giving it a very more calm. This that's why. So, for example, I want to use him as an example. Like when he used to sing Versace on the floor, leave the door open. When I'm with you, it feels like I'm locked out of heaven. He was all talking about sex. Yes, everything there was sex. It's not. It
No,
was not talking
I
about.
do not know.
But he was talking about sex in a very careful and thoughtful manner. He wasn't talking about sex as if no, he hated the person he was having sex
Yeah,
with.
yeah.
Eh. That's why some people could mistake it for a love song. He's not. He is for
Cause man, I'm just thinking that this guy is so love struck. He doesn't want his babe to leave
the
him.
Versace on the
I
floor. That move the clothes. That is Versace, and it's on the
what
floor.
the hell?
She's not. It's not. It's not. It's not. They are having sex. It's
Wow.
a. But like that's why I'm saying. So I think what you can do in things like that is encouraging uh all this your personal sex education and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Also, you are as a citizen, you are a voter. Vote for like pro-choice policies if that is something you
Mm,
care about. So, for example,
mm-hmm.
if you look at the manifesto of any Nigerian legislator or anything, and one of their this thing is more access to
Child
family plan,
marriage.
against child marriage, and more access to family planning. Getting concerned
Mm-hmm.
about like more pro-choice policies. This person has
Yeah.
my vote. Person say I want children to marry at 50. I'm saying I don't vote for this person.
I know they
Eh,
vote for you.
exactly. Excuse me. So that is what basically what I'm saying. So you as a person have pro-choice, like vote for pro-choice things,
Yeah.
support pro-choice institutions. So for people that are
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
if you can donate, donate to them. If you
Yeah.
can volunteer, volunteer this thing. Then also uh more sex education. If it's something you can like let your younger ones do, aside from movies and all, that will the
Mm-hmm.
campaign be more thoughtful this thing. That one can be a mass movement. But also, make a decision like the kinds of songs that if your nephew or niece, for example, is listening to Odomudu, you be like, hey, please, so don't listen
Please
don't listen to scaring the host. You can listen to a
delete
more
it now.
exact. You can listen to this thing, but let's be more this thing than that. But basically, that's what I would say. That's what I would say. Let's just end it there. There's more. Let's end it
See, this episode is very heavy, very heavy. So like I thoroughly enjoyed it. I wish we could continue. Honestly, we can always do a part two if you guys like want like more information. But Iri has said so much, and my head is full, and I'm like, yeah, I understand now. Like because I always had like the notion like anytime people were always doing like all those pro-choice like you know protest and everything, they always say, oh, don't kill the babies, don't kill the babies. I'm like, there should actually be more to it. So I think like maybe there are some people obviously that are shy to discuss these things because especially background, growing up,
there.
your religion. Ire, thank you so much for
You're welcome.
always saying yes to me. It's not easy because I get wahala. So you always say yes to me. Like I truly, truly appreciate it. And thank you so much for coming on the podcast. And I'm sure that this your title as our intelligence correspondent, you don't take am as
Yes.
yeah,
Oh, sure.
you have to
Next
take it.
time.
You
Yes,
can't even
yes.
argue. But thank you and thank you guys for listening. If you reach the end of this episode, you are really an OG because some people may have already clicked that I don't want to hear it, I don't want to hear it, I don't want to hear it. But till the next episode, guys. Thank you for coming again. I'll always usher you into this show as as our special guest of honor. Thank you so much and bye guys.